Hey, so I wanted to film this stage of adding color for the first time, and I wanted to show you how my process. This is a black and white gesso underpainting, and here, let me show you. Uh, this is gesso, this is the white, and now they've come out with a black. So what I do is I mix them in a plate this and come up with various grays. And it's a water-based acrylic primer, so it's designed to go on canvas first of all, and oil paints go over them great, or acrylics. You can always do an acrylic base and go over it in oils, but you can't do the reverse. It's an oil and water thing. So I know that starting a painting from scratch can be fairly intimidating, but if you do this method, it gives you a great head start. Um, I like to either outline it or just outline it with gesso or pencil or whatever, but do a black and white underpainting, and then I go over it with oils, and the gesso um, shows through. The tones actually show through the paint for the first few thin layers, and then it gets covered up fairly easy. So let me show you how that works. It's pretty cool. I kind of stumbled across this technique a few years back when they first came out with black gesso. I thought, wow, okay, let's try this. Let's try mixing black and white and see if we can get tones of gray and see how this works out. And then I discovered layering, glazing, basically building up my colors with oils works great on top of this. And like I said, oh, hey buddy, how you doing? This is WYSIWYG. Just come to say hi and give you my morning hug. But I am filming right now. I'm gonna start painting. Okay, so you're gonna have to hang in there, buddy, and come back later. Okay, all right. Just you can say hi to the people. Say hi to the people. All right. So the first color I'm gonna attack it with is yellow. This is a fireball back here, and I'm gradually going to build out the orange and reds. And this is the first layer, so it's an ugly stage. Basically, it's just to start to apply the color. And the reason I like to cover the whole canvas before I refine the areas is so that I can get some color in the texture, so that there's no white showing anymore. So because when you paint and you're sliding your brushes across the canvas, it can miss those crevices, and then you got all these white crevices showing through, and then you have to go back and touch those up. So best to start off with layering as much color as you want, and build from there. So let's just start with the yellow, and go easy on yellow because it's a pretty overwhelming color. And so here I'm just gonna scrub it in. I got a basic outline of my fireball here. So, and I can go over these areas and it's not a problem, because I'm gonna go over all of this with darker colors so I can build from light to dark. And as I mentioned before, if you want a light source in your painting and to keep it vibrant, try to keep as much of the white of the canvas as possible, because it's the brightest white you're going to get. And it really does make a difference when it comes to photography, because the way light works is it has to penetrate through the paint and refract back. So the more paint you have on there, it's more challenging for the light to refract back. So best to leave the lit areas, the effects, as bright as possible with the least amount of paint, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna quickly get in some yellow. Like I said, I'm scrubbing it in. I might just edit this video and cut and then splice them together later. We'll see. I'm just using a webcam test online. I noticed that it allows me to record and download. So it's like, okay, great. Then I'll just try this program, see how that works. So I've got my reference on this screen here, and I know this image pretty well. I've painted it several times. This was the first cover I did for my Alien series with Dark Horse. I guess in '89, 35 years ago. And then I ended up painting it 3 times. I did the original pose, and I liked it a lot, and I had it in a air duct. But it was just an air duct, and there was not a lot going on. And so I thought, no, maybe I'll have it going down a gnarly corridor with the pipes and steam, and very, very Ridley Scott. And so I repainted it pretty much the way it is now, but without the fireball behind it. And I thought, well, it needs some effect. It needs to be punched up. So then I redid it again with the fireball, and that was the effect it needed. It just got punched up from there. Okay, so that's enough yellow for now. It's just a base. How does that look? You can't see much from the video, I guess. But it's just a base color to start. And the other great thing about, you can see that the oils are going over the gesso just fine, and the tones are showing through just fine. But the other great thing about doing it this way, applying thin layers and building up, is the first layers allows for the multiple layers afterwards to grip onto the canvas better. A raw canvas is pretty slick, and you can't get a painting first time around with the first strokes. You just got to build up the color, unless you want to paint really thick, which is not a good idea. Some people like to paint that way with palette knives, whatever. Bob Ross for one. But that's to build up the color, and then you have a lot of nuances of color. And like I said, this is the you can see that this is Liquin right here. It's like a gel. It's a lot thicker than linseed oil, and it dries a lot faster. Like this thin layer here will be dry within an hour, and then I can go over it after that. And in fact, it'll dry a lot quicker if I put it out in the sun. So sometimes I do that. I'll do the first layer, and I'll let the painting sit out in the sun for an hour. I also wanted to show you, I buy large quantities of Liquin, and I go through probably 2 of these a year. But great stuff. And I'm not getting paid by them, so this is not a paid sponsorship. I also use these brushes that I buy on Amazon. They come in a set of 9. They're filberts. I like filberts. Although these sets are really cheap, and I go through a lot of brushes. Trust me. It's about $12 or $13 for a set of 9, and Liquin's pretty hard on brushes, so one brush may last me maybe 2 paintings if I'm lucky. And as it gets more rigid, the tips get more rigid and worn. I like to save those brushes and use them to really scrub in uh, more layers when I do a lot of glazing techniques. So now I'm going to switch to orange. It's just use basic orange. I can't even remember. It's just a cadmium orange light. I'm not specifically mixing my colors just yet. This is just primary colors that I'm putting on there, and then as I paint, I'll blend and I'll blend on the palette and I'll blend on the canvas. So let's get into some orange. Oh shit, that's too strong. No, I'm kidding. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Just scrub it in. Scrub it in. You notice my underpainting is showing through just fine, but again, it'll get covered up easily in the second and third layers. So it's not an issue. Gesso, like as I said, is a primer, and when you get new canvases, they are heavily primed with gesso already, which is just like an acrylic chalk base. What was I going to say now? Ah, crap, I forget. Oh, yeah. But you can often use it to cover up a painting or cover up certain areas. If you don't like that area, just cover it up with some Liquin, which sounds crazy because it's water-based acrylic on top of oils that you've already painted, but it adheres perfectly, and then you can repaint over. So it's a nice opaque primer to what am I trying to say? As a base to get back to white, because here we go. I was going to say. Oh yeah. Well, sometimes here I'm using this pretty wide filbert brush right now, and I'm going to use the shit out of it, and it's going to be pretty much ruined by the time I did this painting. It's a big deal. What is it, about $1, $2 in these packs? Or sometimes I like to use a sponge. If I'm just going to do a base coat, and I often do just a base coat of raw umber, I will use a sponge, and it doesn't matter. It can be as rough as you want, and this allows me to just scoop it off my plate and spread it fairly easy, or if I want it smooth. But a sponge works really good. Again, as a base tool. You can see I'm just scooping large amounts of this and it'll spread easy. But again, it's just the base, so I can go over this, and I'm allowing this area to remain because I'm going to add some magenta or pink. So and reds and oranges and yellows are probably the most difficult colors to paint with. They're fairly translucent, And so to get a really powerful orange or red, especially orange or red, it's best to build up the color by doing multiple layers, not just one layer, but multiple layers. And again, with Liquin, you can glaze right over it just like this. Piece of cake. So here I'm not going to worry about getting anything too even. It doesn't matter, because I'm going to be repainting it many times to get a nice rich orangey red. So rather than waste more time, I'm going to stop the video here. I'm just going to continue painting all the orange around here, and eventually I'll start blending it into the blue. But again, the blending and the streaks and the strokes are irrelevant at this point, because it's just the base layer of color, and then you build up on top of that. And but I just wanted to show you this stage. Well, maybe I'll just show you some of the I'm going to continue this orange later, but let me just show you going over the alien here with some asphaltum, which is a nice brown. I love this brown. It's like a golden brown. It's somewhere between raw umber and burnt umber, but it intensifies with more layers. The more layers you apply, the darker it gets. But if you use it lightly, you get a really nice gold. I don't know if I can show you the gold here, but I don't know if you'll see this on the camera. Here, I don't know if that shows up. It's a really nice golden brown. But here, this is what's cool, is I can go over my underpainting here, and I can still see all my lines just fine. Right now I'm using a brush because I want to stay tight within the base color, but normally I would use a sponge, but that's more broad. This is a tighter underpainting. So, okay, so that's what I wanted to show you. That's what I wanted to get on film before I get any further. So, hope I taught you something valuable, and give it a shot, and you like my technique. Cheers.